So when I first moved away for college, I wasn't prepared for how anxious I was. Usually when I went to a new high school, I moved to three different high schools. I was still like doing fine because I at least knew some people there. But however, like when I moved to San Diego, it was a new city, so I kind of had no idea what I was doing. But whenever I could go home because I did have a car and I lived in LA, I felt like I could breathe again. Initially, I thought it was homesickness, so I could actually go out and do things. But after learning about Bowlby's attachment theory, I think there is a better explanation. So Bowlby was a British psychologist who studied how children form emotional bonds with their caregivers. He identified four stages, starting at birth, where babies just signal needs without preference for anyone specific. And then after that, that's when they form real bonds by around 6 weeks. And then this is where within the 6 to 8 month range they call it a clear cut attachment, where separation anxiety actually shows up between the infant and the caregiver. And then finally, around age 2, kids enter the stage of reciprocal relationships. So they actually start to understand caregivers, how they come back, and how they can handle distances a little bit better when they're not there. So the last stage is kind of what Bowlby introduced is called the secure base, and that's my connection with like how when your early attachment is secure, whether it's like with your caregiver, for most people it's their parents, because you trust that person is still there and accessible. So depending on how far you are, so obviously like people who live closer have an advantage to this. So that's what like phone calls home were doing for me, whether it's like going in person or calling online. So I wasn't like a toddler watching my mom leave the room, but the mechanism of like having the need for my parents or like my grounding was still the same. So the secure base I built as a kid was just showing up at a much bigger scale when I actually had to move far away from my base.